Not a real long stream, maybe about an hour. I still got some work to do. The concerts I was actually put up today, unfortunately, I got to put up tomorrow. Um, I actually played last night with Caracal and with Mika, and I did talk to them about some of the stuff that I dug up from um, information regarding World of Warships, and it's basically, I don't know if everybody's caught on to the fact that for what I have been playing, I've been complaining about the new meta. I actually got more information with this. I did talk to quite a few people on two of the other servers. I did talk to a couple of the community contributors. I won't, well, one, both of them were community contributors. I won't go into details with who they are. And I've talked to a couple people that are involved with the company, but I won't say who they are either, just because of the fact that my intention with this isn't to bring traffic to the site or that, but it's just to give you guys a heads up. I was slamming people in Asia. Well, I wasn't really slamming them. I was slamming the company, but I was putting the blame on because of what's happening in the game, and sitting there saying, well, this is because these guys using Hag and what's the other one? God, I can't think of what the other program is, but Warpack. That's what it is. So mainly Hag. One of the things with this is it is being used, but it's not as widespread as I thought it was. What's kind of happened in this, and I talked to a friend of mine that does marketing for one of the major gaming console companies, and she got me in touch with some people in China that play the game. Well, that played it on the C server, or basically what would be Oceania and Eastern Asia, and pretty much got the gist with this that the traffic on that server started to decline. And if you see Flamo's video, and I should actually put a link, just look up Flamo. It was put up like about a week ago. If I could find the link, I'll put it in. Simply put, with this, what happened in this is they did some changes in the game that a lot of the players out there didn't like, and so they started putting in bots, like what you see in co-op, but they're more like the bots that were around back post beta, but they're actually beefed up even more. So these bots, they have horrible positioning, they have wicked aim, you can't torp them to save your life, and they little weird things because the game resets. And from what I've kind of gathered this talking to everyone, it looks like what happened to this, they brought in actual new accounts with all the same premiums, the whole 9 yards, and a lot of the people that were on the C server didn't like this because they were just getting their butts handed to them over and over and over and over. So they went to the North American server, and you're going to see two major migrations that happened about the past 2 years. One is a lot of the C server players came to North America, and there's quite a bit of the Russian players that went to the European server. The Russia one, I don't know a lot about. I really haven't looked into it. The C server with North America, that directly impacts me, so I did do a lot of digging over this past week. And from what I gathered with this, is that a lot of the numbers, if you look at the numbers on the server here, when this was at its peak, which would have been probably about 4 years ago, during the day you'd have about 15 to 20,000 people playing on the North American server. At night, which would have been the quote dark hours, when not a lot of people are playing, it would have been Pacific Standard Time, probably about 1 a.m. all the way up to about 4 a.m. You got a lot of people that weren't playing, and it's because unless it was like summertime, it would actually spike because a lot of the kids didn't have to go to school, so they were staying up later and they were playing later. We hit a point in this, I would say probably about a year ago, where at 2, 3 in the morning you could do random battles, and I know people could actually corroborate this, where you'd have 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, and matchmaking was trying to use what player base was in the game at the time to try to make an actual match. And I've heard horror stories of like 2 aircraft carriers at a cruiser, or, you know, 2 battleships at a destroyer, and, you know, or just 2 aircraft carriers versus 2 aircraft carriers, you know, stuff like that. And it happened for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden, you just had a ton of players that just all of a sudden were playing at night. And so I was checking this, and like last night, because I did see the numbers dropping. And if you see the Flamu video, one of the things with this is during each quarter of the year, and quarters, it's more of a financial term, but it's also a programming term. You break everything into quarters, and it's just set up milestones for an overall project, or, you know, for a monetary standpoint, to see how your business is doing. So they're like, you take one in a business standpoint, it would be a fiscal year from when you start to when you stop, over a 12-month period, and it's not always January, December, but in this standpoint, we'll just keep it simple. So it'd be January through the end of March, and then like April through the end of, well, it'd be 1 through 3, 4 through 6, then like 7 through 9, and then 11 through 12. So basically that type of setup. The North American server, if you look at the base numbers, from what I gather with this, when they did it looks like when they did the massive rework on the aircraft carriers, they lost a huge amount of people in the game. And then after that, they did, between that, the HE spamming, some of the reworking they did with ships where they just neuter them. And the last one that really did it was the economics, where they changed it. There's actually been a loss. But what's happened with this, even with them adding, because they're adding bots into the game basically, and they're now doing it differently now than they were on the C server, from what I've been told and from what I've seen, based on looking at people's stats. And I'll get into that in a sec. But basically, if you look at the fan base, every quarter they're losing roughly about 10% every quarter. And yet, if you look at this, because even if we look now, there's 10,576 people playing on this server, and yet worldwide you got 23,580. Now, based on these numbers, that means that most of the people that are playing in the U.S. Now, this is prime hours. In Europe, it'd be, you know, around midnight, 1 a.m. You know, right now. But one of the things with this, and then in Oceania, it's going to be more in the mid-morning, early morning. Well, it'd be more mid-morning right now. So the big problem with this is that the bulk of their player base right now has been on the Russian server and the European server. As of late, the European server mainly. Usually the European server gets about 3.5 times more players than the North American. C server actually gets about twice as much as we do. So we shouldn't, you know, in all reality, players worldwide, you know, if we're at 10,000, then the overall player base should be around 35, 40,000. Because even when Europe is, quote, going to the night hours, Russia would be in the night hours. You got two things of this. One, it's a weekend. And I know Russia, with the whole, quote, special operation, you know, that plays a role in this. But Europe, you're still going to have a player base there, and it's still pretty high. And with it starting to get into the prime hours of the morning and be in the weekend, the C server should be ramping up. Because one of the things that's funny with this, I've been told by a lot of people that with wargaming, a lot of the C server, the Pacific Ocean, Eastern Europe, about half of those players have come to North America. They're playing on here. And it creates two problems. And from what I gather with this, it's because, like I said, with the bots are cranked up so high on there to inflate the numbers to make it look like, hey, we're doing good, that it's driving the people over here. And so what's happening with this is, in the process of doing this, you wind up getting a lot of the people coming on here. And if you notice, when I play, you'll see that there's a ping that's usually up here in the match, and you have the frame rate, and there's one other value. But the frame rate's basically showing how many frames per second you're getting. the ping rate is the stability of the stream, and the lower the ping rate, the better. This game only does 7 ticks per second, which is insanely low, which is how many times you get information per second from the server. So most games, like most of the competitive games, the lowest one I've heard is League of Legends, which is at 30 ticks per second. So most of them are usually right around 90 to 120 in that range. So with World of Warships being at 7, in North America, if you're playing like battleships, cruisers, where the reload time's 9 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, it's not that big of a deal. If you got rapid fire ones, if they're constantly shooting over a period of time, you're going to start seeing a lag in the shots. It won't be really noticeable unless you're like timing them. And there's been a couple people like on YouTube, and and it's not hard to look up, where they pointed out that like if you're playing like the Friesland, or its new counterpart, where it's got a 1 second reload, if you shoot for about a minute, you'll notice that 1 second reload's going for about 3 seconds. So it is noticeable over time, and that's not because of the quality of the game, it's because of the tick rate. The tick rate is so low. Now, the reason why I bring this up is when a lot of these people from South Korea, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, China, Japan, when they're playing on the North American server, ideally, you don't want your ping rate higher than about 140, 160 in that range. These guys are hopping on here and they got a ping rate of like 300, 350, so they need something to compensate. The program's got its own ability to compensate to make it playable for them, but it doesn't work. There's a reason why they put the bulk of the workload on the computer, on your computer, not on their server, and this is part of it. And what's happening with this is that these people are using like HAG or Warpack, and they're mainly doing this to make the game playable. They're not doing it to screw people over here initially. And I have talked to some of the people that and some of the people I've talked to are really cool out there. And they're not like 15-year-old kids or 18-year-old kids. I mean, they're actual adults. Some of these people actually have really professional jobs. This is their way of blowing steam. Well, they can't play on their server, so they come over here. They're using one of these. Warpack's a legitimate aimbot. Hag is more of an editor. And so they're using this to make the game playable. They're not using this to screw people over. Well, that was about a year ago. We jumped forward, and now you've got people using this to screw people over. But it's not as big of a number as I thought it was. And so there's certain things you can catch on to. If you go to NA WoW server, and let me see if I have the link up because I can actually show you guys. Because I'm actually going to show you guys the next problem that's really, really screwing over Warships. So if you go to this game, and I should have actually saved some of the profiles, but we're going to, let me get this. I'm actually going to be showing you guys my desktop. So we will put this display capture on. I'm going to mute Warship. So if you look at this is the website, na.wows-servers.com. This is only for North America. A lot of these, the new thing they're doing with the bots on the C server, they caught on to them because they weren't, quote, covering their tracks. What I've been seeing they're doing, they're taking accounts that haven't been played for about a year, and all of a sudden they start playing, but their stats are hidden. And if you look at their ships, the ships that they have in there, they usually have the same premium ships, and the stats are absolutely horrible. But if you actually do some digging in this, you'll find that these guys are playing at super unicum level. They're like pretty much at the level of like in the top 1% in terms of players in the world. And these are people that are playing at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning in North America. I was sitting there pointing the finger at like, the Asians and people in Oceania sitting there thinking, well, they're using HAG and that's what's happening. No, these people actually, if you look up their clans, it's written in Chinese. They're using like, or it's in Japanese or Korean, and and they're using either Discord, or they're using an instant message service that's actually used a lot out there. And it's a messaging service. It's a big giveaway, whether if they're from out there or they're here. So like in Russia, they use mainly ICQ. Europe, I'm trying to remember what we used mostly out there. I think it was Skype. Skype was the main thing. Out here, and also TeamSpeak. Out here, it's usually Discord, and out there they use different messaging platform. But out here, you'll see a lot of them are actual legitimate clients from North America. I figure, well, they're just selling them to people out there because they don't want to play the game anymore. But with the horror stories I've been hearing on the C server, they're identical. So you got people, and there's a big giveaway with this. One, they all have the same premium chips. Two, they're players that would get an RNG boost because their stats are so low, but they're getting boosted so much that they shouldn't be getting that type of boost. The second thing with this too is you look at the number of matches that they're playing per day. And some of these, like the most you could realistically play per day, unless you were playing a match, dropping quickly, getting into another one right when you died, and you were actually rushing, you're basically grinding, and that's the only way you're playing. You're not going to get more than 70, 80 matches in a day. I mean, you think that the average person, if you're doing full length matches, you're going to be doing 3 matches an hour. And so if you're playing for 24 hours a day, that's 72 matches. Now, nobody in the right mind is going to do that unless you're grinding. I've done like 12, 14 hours. And if you're doing a quick drop out, push into another match, you might be able to squeeze out 5. But realistically, people are only going to be playing at most 12, maybe 14 hours. 14, you're still looking at about 70 matches. So, we can put a pretty safe ceiling for random battles about 70, 75 matches. I've seen some of these accounts where they have 200 matches in a day. Now, mathematically, that's impossible. You can't play more than one match at the same time. Normal people can't. Bots can. And you'll see this like in co-op, you'll see the same name. Well, that was one of the big things with this. Well, and that's the reason I'm bringing this up, Scott, is if you look at this, they're making decisions in this, and you can use World of Warships and you can use World of Tanks. You can see where they're at, and the one wargaming game that's further down the road is World of Warplanes. World of Warplanes is dead. The server's being managed in Cyprus. The actual code is being written in the language template's Chinese. And again, I'm not slamming China. I'm just saying that the business isn't doing this. Any business is going to have 2 basic principles. One's to make money, which is a given. The second one is you want to create a positive culture for your brand. And your brand is basically your company, your logo, your icon for the business, your products or your service, your employees, and your customer base. So you want to have a really good environment. So if you want to have a successful business, you got to make a profit. You got to have a positive culture. Positive for your brand and for anything involved with your brand. Wargaming, because I started with when they came out with Warplanes 2.0, I started playing World of Warplanes, and it did have a legitimate traffic boost. And I noticed that after talking to a couple people that had played that in the previous version, the prices on the planes were going up incrementally. And they put the prices at a fair price, but they were still somewhat expensive. And then when all these people didn't like how it was playing and they stopped playing it, they started selling these planes for $1, $2. For a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, they were like 99 cents. For a tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, they were like $2, $3. So what they were trying to do is they're trying to get anybody that would go there and say, hey, wow, this looks like a great deal. And then they start playing it and they get their asses handed to them. People are sitting there and they're going, well, whenever I play, there's always these people that just sit there and they zero in on the noobs, the new players, the newbies, and they just wreck them. And and they're trolling the game. Well, if you use the information that I gathered from the C server, the Asian server, it's exactly the same. These aren't real people. These are accounts that are being taken over by basically bots, and they're being cranked up to the upteenth so that people can have a quote challenge. But yes, there's not enough support information in planes, so people get driven out of the game. The game's dead. And in Warships, they're trying to rip out gimmicks. And I mentioned this in my Warframe video last night when I compared the 2 games. And I did talk to Mika about this, my son. And one of the things I noticed with this, if you look at Warframe, they came out with a new Warframe. Unique abilities, the stats will, they have the same stats, but they're not identical from Warframe to Warframe, but they use the same parameters. Armor, energy, health, and then the base ability ones. And but the powers are all unique, and they don't rush these things out. They rip them out like maybe I would say maybe like from what I've heard, maybe like 2 Warframes, maybe 2 a year, and maybe like one or probably 2 primes, maybe 3 or 4 in that range. Warships has been ripping out. I mean, I've been shocked at the amount of new ship lines that they've been ripping out. But if you notice with this, they come out with something unique with each nation, and they run into 2 problems. One, they start sharing these. They're basically gimmicks at this point because there's nothing unique for nation to nation based on ship type. They plug them in, so it's like SAP. Well, that was something unique with the Italian cruisers. Well, we're going to give it to the Italian battleships. Okay, now we're going to give it to the Italian destroyers. On top of this, we're going to give it to a premium U.S. destroyer, the Sherman, and then short fuse AP, which is what the British light cruisers have. You don't get a lot of overpens. Well, you shouldn't get any overpens because they're short fuse. They go right, they penetrate, they blow up right there. They're World War I armor piercing. Well, that was something the light cruisers had. Well, then they start throwing them in some of the destroyers, and it's like, well, hey, we're going to do these little things because they work. And the problem with this is that when you start sharing them with other ship lines, Deepwater Torps is another one too, something unique. Well, now we have all these, and then it's like you look at this, and that's the first problem. The second problem with this that they've had as a game model is they come out with a ship line. Like one of the ones I used to always play was a Khabrosk. Well, then they came out with a Kleber. So the Khabrosk, you can either have smoke or a heal, but the Kleber's faster. It's got better torps. It's got better guns for the most part. And it doesn't have the option of a heal, but the torps have better reach. I think the guns are actually the armor. The drawbacks that the Khabrosk has in the armor because people figured it out. The Kleber technically has, but it doesn't have. It's basically a beefed up version of what the Khabrosk is. Games like using Warframe again on this, they'll retool the Warframes to rebalance them, so that way the older ones are still relevant to the new ones. So even when they're distinct, each one, certain ones will excel for certain missions, other ones excel for other missions. But you can actually, because they're balanced, one's not going to be predominantly better than another one. It's part of it's the Warframe, part of it's the player. World of Warships, if you look at this, a lot of the older ships, the Moskva, hell, even the Montana, the Yamato, all these have been power corrupt. So the Yamato had the capability. What made it stand out was its guns. The guns were the biggest in the game. It could actually overmatch any bow armor and had a chance of citadeling any bow. Well, now you've got the Shikishima, you got the Thunder, you got the was it the Incomparable? You got the St. Vincent. They're ripping these ships out, and now you have tier 11 ones. So all the advantages that the Yamato had have been power crept away. When they do rebalance and rebalance a lot of the ships, they either overpower them or they neuter them. They don't try to find an equal balance. One of the things with this is when they came out with the aircraft carrier retooling, they pissed off a lot of people. They lost a huge fan base. Rather than listening to their fan base, which is something I will give credit to Warframe, people go into the forum, they complain about stuff. They actually address it. They try to take that into consideration. Here, I'm going to give you guys one other example because I think this is extremely relevant, and this will kind of present what's going on. So, oops. If I can find it. Hello. Stats, numbers, chipper. Let's see. Okay, right here. So if you look at this, this is the World of Warships official channel. I actually had the extension where you can look at the dislikes. Now, this is not a slam on Warframe. I mean, Wargaming in terms of their game itself, but the business approach that they're doing with this. So any business you want to be on multiple platforms for marketing. It's marketing 101 for the internet. Really, really smart. It's the same thing as brand marketing, physical marketing. If you're doing physical marketing, you want to be on billboards, you want to be on the radio, you want to be on TV commercials. You want to have an ideal spots where your demographics are going to see it and want to go check you out. So you look at here, and we do. I'm going to do a couple of the ones. I grabbed some of the recent ones. So if you look at this one, American Tier 9 cruiser, the Vallejo. Okay, likes 1,000, dislikes 185. That's good. That's really good. Then we'll do the Corvette, and I think this is one of the ones where Naval Legends, 851 likes, 169 dislikes. So people like these. There's your idea of, well, we should continue pursuing these. People like it, and you want to check your quarters, your fiscal quarters to see how you guys are doing as a business. That's a good way to indicate whether people like it or not. Check your forum and you check your social medias. And if you're not certain with this is where polls or talking to people in there, your community contributors, because they do talk a lot with people. Your community contributors are kind of like your PR standpoint. And when Warships, when Wargaming lost a huge chunk of their community contributors, that should have been a pretty good indicator. Maybe you guys should really reevaluate what you're doing and retool things, because you guys have an awesome platform here between tanks, warships, even planes. Planes, the art development there, the actual core game design is incredible. There's, I would say their security sucks, but that's either here or there. I don't like the way that the way that they have it set up versus server versus PC when you compare it to other games. But then you look at this. So we've looked at these two, and you've got about 8 to 10 times the likes versus dislikes. Now we hit subs, and subs is the latest thing that people don't like. So update 0.11.9, 1.2 thousand likes, 3.9 thousand dislikes. Okay, so does that mean that they don't like subs, or do they not like the Halloween celebrations or the Operation Warpack, or what? Or do they want Dasha back? What is it? Well, let's check this out. We'll check out another sub one. 654 likes, 1.7 thousand dislikes. You're looking at about 3 times the amount of dislikes to the amount of likes. So right there, you see a trend starting up. Okay, so doesn't look like people really like subs. Well, maybe it's a fluke. So we'll check another one. Submarines and early access Halloween. So we got 2 there. 475 likes, 1.4 thousand dislikes. We're starting to see a trend here. Halloween was in 2, but subs have been in all 3. So we'll just do one more. Submarines in the Armory. And, Naval Legends is actually one of their strong ones. So, and Brawls have actually been pretty strong. So this should actually get a pretty good response. 298 likes to 572 dislikes. Again, about 2 to 1, 3 to 1 dislikes to likes. The one trend that you have in here is subs. So if you look at this, they didn't do anything with the planes. They further pushed it. When your client base doesn't like what you're doing, then if you're a band and you're doing, let's say, metal, and then you decide to do hip hop and all your fans aren't buying your stuff, then you go, well, shit. We need to actually either one, stick to what we're doing and do it just for us because we don't need the money anymore, or if we want to keep on making money, we need to find a way to go back to our roots, or at least try to find some type of middle ground where we can have what we want, but our fans will like what we have. You need to try to find a way, again, to make money in your culture. You need to have a balance in this. Your culture is not just you, but it's your clients, your customers, your consumer base. And what I'm seeing in this with wargaming is they're focused on making the money. And again, just like in warplanes, if you notice this in the ship, with the premium ships, the prices are going up. And I'm going to bring something up just so you guys can see this. We're going to kill this. I'm going to hop out of the game, and I'm doing this for one particular purpose. And I won't even bother putting the overlay back on. So, noink. Yes. I'm going to actually show you guys something that they're adding to the game. It's something I saw in Blitz, but this is something that I don't agree with how they're doing this. So we're going to go to the public test. I was on here day before yesterday. Somebody told me to go here and check this out, and I went on here and I was showing Mika this. I was actually shocked because the bots that they have in this are identical to the questionable people late at night on World of Warships. And it's just like, in this sense, the stat standpoint to a lot of the people that play in World of Warplanes. And I've noticed these people, They have horrible positioning of their ships, but man, you know, they can citadel the crap out of you. You can't torp them to save your life. And the only ones that I know that, and I noticed this, I was using deep water torps, trying out the Pan Asian cruisers. Right when I threw my torps out, their ship started turning. And I've seen the same thing in random battles with certain people. And where I thought these were cheaters, I can go one-on-one with them with any ship, and it's going to be a wash. We'll kill each other most of the time. And it's because their stats are so cranked up that, they can, I've seen him shoot somebody in the bow, like in a Kremlin, and get 2-3 citadels in one salvo. It's possible for that to happen, but when they shoot 3 salvos like that and they're doing 70,000 damage or something wrong. Kremlin's got it's got one of the stronger bows in the game. And unless you're playing one of the tier 10s or certain one of the super ships or certain tier 10s, you shouldn't be able to do that. So what they're adding, and this is going to happen on Black Friday, they're adding a couple new ship lines. But the bigger thing I wanted to point out in this is that now they're doing a battle pass. So with the battle pass, you're going to get this free one for free. And I can't verify this for certain, but based on talking to a few people with them doing math, me doing math, it doesn't look like with the current design that it'll be feasible to get to 50 unless you're playing non-stop, and you might be able to get to 50. So for free, you'll get a super container, 500,000 credits. You'll get research, you'll get coal, you'll get steel, which is fine. These are things that were originally designed to be earned, but if you notice right here, first paywall, 3,000. Coal, you got research, you got steel, you got a premium ship at 50. But like I said, unless you're playing day and night, you're not going to be able to get to these. So the pass, and unfortunately I did buy the pass, in here it was free. So I can't show you again, but the premium pass has got 2 levels. So the first level on this is you get access to this right here, and that's it. The second one is it gives you all these cool bonuses, and it's the missions part that's the key thing. So for the first 2 passes, you get daily trial and you get weekly trial. That's it. And I think it's for 2,500 doubloons for the month. If you get the second one, which is like 6,500 doubloons, you get the extra missions. The extra missions make it where it's easy to get. It's easy to get up to the level 50 and beyond, where you can get other perks. But basically, what they've created here is, and this is why I'm slamming this, and I will show you something with this. So here, every other level, and these aren't really that great of rewards. I mean, probably the best thing would be the vacant slot. And there's 2 things with this. This is the first thing, is that you're getting levels where you don't earn squat. And then you look at, where is it? Here. This is gonna be the only place, as far as I know, that these boosters are going to be offered. These are the unique, the uber special ones. Free XP 7,200%. Commander, 1,600. Now, to show you how this is brand new. They haven't released this yet. So if you look at this, we're going to hop onto World of Tanks Blitz, and this is where I first saw it. And I know that a lot of phones do this, but my complaint with this is the Blitz Battle Pass isn't bad. $5 a month, and you get 2 free tanks. You get a tier 4 at the very beginning. If you get through all the levels, you get a tier 6. They're kind of gimmicky in the standpoint that they're almost identical to other tanks, but they're in between premium and regular, so you do get some bonuses with it, and it's a great way for a new player to actually get established. And then if you look at this and stuff like this, you don't have to pay for this. You just go log on every day. You get to here, and you'll get, I think it's a tier 6 tank called the Nightmare. So this is cool. But one of the things that they're doing now is, see, in the Battle Pass, this is how they have it here. So the free Battle Pass, you don't pay for it. Every single level you get something. So that's this top level right here. So like the next level I go up, I will get the rare credit boosters, which will give me between 7,500 and 35,000. Bear in mind that you earn a lot less credits in here than you do in Warships. Here, ×3 boosters. which will give you a boost on when you win in your respective tank, which are really awesome for grinding. 55,000 credits. Then you have rare, which are the middle of the road. They have 3 different types of boosters, and you can upgrade these, but you get 3 of them. 1,000 free XP. Then you get the crew XP boosters. So this approach isn't bad. And then if you want to do the premium, they give you twice as much on some of them, and well, they give you pretty much twice as much. These are the top. They're the upgraded version of what these would be for this respective reward, and they give you doubloons. So it makes it where they incentivize you to spend $5. You get this tank right here, and then you bust your butt, and at level 60 you get is it 6? No, it's or is it 50? That was 50. But they have it where let me just do this. This will be easier. Oh, level 30. So level 30 you'll get the tier 6, and then if you get up to 60 you get a special camo for it. So here they give you rewards, and then if you want to speed it up, 1 level 325. 15 levels you're spending 4,500. So if you wanted to get this tank, they made it where you got to pay for it either by grinding or you got to pay cash for it. But they incentivize you to actually play the game and actually work your way up. They also incentivize you with 2 tanks and a buttload of goodies to do the premium, but you still will get goodies even if you don't pay. So it makes it where to play the game you get incentivized for each and one of these levels, and these are based on missions. And I don't like how they've been changing the missions. They're trying to make it harder. These are they have tiers up for them, and I think most of these are like weekly, which I think kind of sucks. But yeah, week 3. So they used to do daily ones. Now they're trying to make it where it's a little bit more painful. But at least it's still in favor of the players playing, having fun, focusing on doing what they like in the game. And then you look at this one, the missions. You got daily missions, you got weekly missions. I have no problems. I think that's actually a really good approach. If you're going to fork out money, you get extra missions. That's cool too. But I think that my big complaint with this is that they should have the extra missions with just the regular premium battle pass. You shouldn't have it as an extra expense. The other thing is that they should be giving rewards to every level. Make it incentivize people. And also, don't do this at level 50, do it at level 30, and give them something that's going to be low tier right here. Give them a tier 4, give them a tier 3. Something that's, give them the Charleston. So that way, new players will be incentivized to buy the pass. But what I'm seeing in this, them adding bots in this using dead accounts, them doing this, and if you look at the ships, we'll do one other thing. Yes, we'll exit the game for a second. I'm going to go back into the game, the regular game. And I will be playing, but I'm just kind of giving you guys a lowdown of why I won't play this in the evenings. In the afternoon, you're only dealing with, on average, about 1 to 2 bots per match, which isn't bad. At night, you're playing with not just the Asians, which are using software to try to make the game playable for them. And I'm not slamming them. Wargaming should have actually kept the, the basically the Chinese or the C server balanced. They shouldn't have been plugging in all these bots in there. And if you do, you make them like co-op. You make it where the players can play it, where they're not getting nuked by the computer. You don't punish them for playing your brand. Because 1, a lot of the older players are going to get sick of it, and 2, new players don't want to play it because I don't like going into a match and getting nuked in the first 10 minutes and doing almost nothing. In that standpoint, it's better to play co-op where the bots are at least, they're not OP. So, also, here's another funny thing too, the test server. One of the things I don't like with it is it totally screws with, oh wow, I'm going to do this the hard way. It screws with the layout of my tabs. So I got to go digging to find you guys. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to have to open up yet another tab, which my suspicion with my computer is right. I have a Windows update. And I do know that, well, that's another spiel on this. Hey, thanks, Scott. So basically, what's happening with this? If you play this, I'd recommend in the afternoon hours on the North American server. Ideally, about 10 a.m. to about, well, if you're on, well, let's use Pacific to make it easy. I would say about 9 a.m. Pacific till about probably about 4 or 5 p.m. Those are going to be your ideal hours. If you're new, those are the hours I'd highly recommend because that's when you have the most number of players and there's the least number of bots in here. And you're not actually, again, I'm not slamming people in Oceania and in Asia, but usually about 10 o'clock, 11, well, about 9, 10 o'clock Pacific. That's when you get a lot of those players coming in. And again, because the lag's so bad, they're using Hag to try to make the game playable. The legitimate players, but they are getting people in there, and also in South America, they're doing the same thing, and they use it to quote pad their stats too. Not all of them, but some of them. There's a percentage of them, and a lot of those people come in when it's ideal hours for them. Mostly in Oceania, so you're getting a pretty good number, and it makes the game really painful to play. And you get penalized even further for being div'd up. So, well, if you have a 3-man div. 2-man div, it's bearable. 3-man div, it's really bad. But my opinion with this is if you're playing late at night, if you're really good at the game, you won't, me personally, my stats, if I'm playing like battleships, cruisers during the day is usually 100, 150,000 around there. At night, like at 1 in the morning to like 4 in the morning, Pacific Standard, I'll usually get about 40 to 50,000 on there. Sometimes, depending on the ship, like the Thunder, if I'm, the Prussian would be another one. I can usually rack up like, on a good match, 120, 130, but it's not my norm anymore when it's late at night. I mean, that's how much of an impact. And it kind of comes down to one thing. Everything's pointing to the fact that they're using bots here like they are on the Asian server. It's either that or else we have the best players in the world, in the universe, that play from about 1 a.m. to about 4 a.m. in North America, and they play here and then they jump, and then when you hit the dark hours on each one of the servers, they go from here and they jump on those servers, and then they jump on the next server, and and they play on the Asian servers 24/7. Now it's either one or the other, and Oxum's Razor, it's usually going to be the most simple answer. And the most simple answer in this is the fact that Wargaming kind of showed their little boo-boo on this on the Asian server, from what I gathered from how they implemented these accounts. And some of the people out there caught on to this, and unfortunately, they're not able to talk about it, because they don't. The ones that I talk to, they can't talk about it here because of fact, and it's the same reason why I can't market in China anymore for my business. Most of the social medias out there that they use are not the same as here. It's like they use CNET for instead of Twitter. There's Dalban, there's other ones, and they're heavily regulated. And the government's heavily involved with any corporation out there. They usually own on standard. I think it's standard 50% of any business out there. So like TikTok, the part that's in China that's owned by a Chinese company out there, 50% of that's owned by the government out there. It's nothing, it's just the way their government's structured. It's communism, it is what it is, that's kind of where, if you look at the way that, what I'm driving with this is that people out there, you've got to know who to talk to and ask. And then, people that are involved with the business, they're not going to slam the business because it's their job, their paycheck, And like I said, I know a couple of the programmers, absolutely awesome people. I have nothing but respect for their coding, the integrity of the coding that they have. I'm not a huge fan of the coding language that they're using for this game, That's a business decision. That's not so much a programmer. And I don't like the security standards because of the way that they have it set up for load management. But which is funny because I can't seem to get logged in. But yeah, that's kind of where what I'm seeing that's what I'm seeing that's happening here. It's, you know, Warplanes is dead. The trend on here has been identical to Warplanes, and I think that if they're smart, they'll wise up. They'll reevaluate their business approach and their game approach, because it's obvious in this. I think subs are unique, but I think that there's a base problem in this, and it starts with aircraft carriers. I love aircraft carriers. It's actually one of the ones I really like to play. But these are not. You're not playing Star Wars. You're not playing Battlestar Galactica. You're playing a game, and I got to restart this. You're playing a game that's actually legitimately based on. Wow, it's actually hung up. You're actually playing a game that's based on reality. So, in that respect, if you look at real life in history when it comes to ships, these ships actually were designed in kind of an evolution. So you started out with wooden cruisers, heavy cruisers, and you know these were the Corsairs and all the others from like the 1700s, early to mid 1800s. Then during, I would say, I'll use my standards in this, which would be North America. You had the ironclads, which were wooden ships with metal armor on them. They still shot cannons. And then that became the norm, and then eventually you came out with pre-dreadnoughts, which were the precursor to dreadnoughts, which post-dreadnoughts, and then battleships. So by the time that we saw the end of World War II, battleships were the standards. They were considered the powerhouses of the Navy, the powerhouses of a national fleet. Their military, it showed their military might. If you had a really, really big, wicked ship, battleship, that showed, the caliber of what your nation was capable of doing. And perfect example of this is, in real life, is this bad boy, the Yamato. This thing was a beast. This is why the Germans came out with the Tirpitz and the Bismarck, and they had designs for bigger ships. They had 4 base designs from what I remember. The Japanese had the Musashi, the Yamato. They would have had a third one, but it became an aircraft carrier, and they were coming out with basically the Super Yamato. They had the designs for it, and they had, from what I understand, part of the framework built. They scuttled all that when they knew they were going to lose, and it was too resource heavy. But they figured these things could go toe to toe with anything in the sea, and they were right, with the exception of subs. Subs were the Achilles heel in this, but going back to aircraft carriers, the next evolution for battleships were aircraft carriers. If you want to have sea supremacy, you got to have air supremacy, because you can transverse air a lot faster than you can sea. If you look at how the Musashi got sunk, it wasn't ships hitting it; it was planes, planes and dive bombers. The Lafayette Gulf, when it was part of that task group of other battleships and cruisers, they pushed ahead. The Musashi fell behind, and it got focused down by the planes, and it got nuked. This ship right here, the Yamato, got focused by like 200 planes and got nuked. Basically, I mean, it was wrecked, but really what did it in was a magazine detonation on the other side. I think it was a torp that hit it. But basically what showed there was aircraft carriers, the mobile islands of the fleet, were the dominant force because of what planes could do. And, and that's the reason why post World War II, the U.S. kept the Iowa class intact, and they had them in reserve, and they had other ones in reserve. They used like the 4 Iowa class ships in the Korean War, Vietnam, Desert Storm, all these little instances, and it wasn't because they were fighting massive fleets, but it's because one of the things that they learned in Germany during World War II is you could flood one side of the ship, put it at at a slight angle where it's actually, I can't do it with this, but if you had it at an angle where it's tilted a little bit, that you could actually get the guns to aim further up, and you could actually use the battleship as artillery, long-range artillery. And these things right here will, we used it in the Korean War for the same thing. And you don't use AP, you use HE. And you're usually going after soft targets, or they actually had AP that could penetrate, and it actually had a heavier explosive. And, but it kind of became the thing with this, that having the bigger gun was obsolete, thicker armor was obsolete. And, modern technology, that's kind of where everything went. And so the problem you have, and the reason why I'm giving you guys a whole history lesson with this, historically, if the Yamato can't go toe-to-toe with an aircraft carrier, the Musashi can't go toe-to-toe with an aircraft carrier, because the planes have further range than the guns do. The planes can spot the battleship, where the battleship doesn't need to focus on the planes. It needs to take out the carrier. So the aircraft carrier's got better range, and it's capable of hitting where there's less armor on the deck with the dive bombers. And so it makes it where there's a massive power imbalance between aircraft carriers and battleships. If you take the regular sea ships in this, the destroyer, the cruiser, and the battleship, there's a chain of command in this. The destroyer can get nuked by the cruiser can get nuked by the battleship, and the battleship can get nuked by the destroyer. Each one's got an inherent advantage over the other one. And so each one's got a very specific role. The aircraft carrier, they're basically meant to nuke anything there. So you got something that historically has got a massive imbalance because it's overpowered. You implement in this game, and then you retool it to, quote, try to balance it, but you're changing the mechanics, but you're not addressing the problem. And you're addressing one aspect of the problem, but you're not actually addressing the problem, because the old approach, you could get all your planes out, but you can't build new planes. You lose your planes, you're screwed. So yeah, a CV could alpha strike, drop everything they had on one ship and nuke it, but whatever that ship took out in terms of planes, the aircraft carrier's not getting it back. Now what they have in this is, we can only send out one squadron that can do, one sortie that can drop, multiple times, but our aircraft carrier can rebuild new planes. So certain lines, you almost have an infinite number of planes if you play it right, and you can get a full drop. You don't need to do a pre-drop when you go out there, and you can just decimate ships. So they've changed one problem for another problem, but they haven't actually addressed the problem that historically aircraft carriers were the evolution of battleships. And it wasn't a bigger gun thing, it wasn't a thicker armor thing. It's the fact that these things hit where these ships are weak, and they have the range that the ships don't. And so historically they've had a massive advantage. They never address this. They just retool. And now they're bringing in the other overpowered ship, which is subs. Look at what the Germans did historically in World War II, just with subs. If you have, subs are capable. I mean, if you have a good sub player, they'll never be spotted. They can just totally. One of the approaches I heard about this with subs that a lot of the good players are doing, and this has got some really, really scary advantages. So they aim at a ship right here. They don't ping it. They start throwing their torps at where the ship's going to be. So I'm going to zoom out. I don't like this. Let me change, because I'm actually going to explain something here with the approach with subs, and it'll kind of give you an idea of one of the mechanics in this where they're really, really overpowered. So they'll go out and they'll throw their torps at the Yamato, for instance. They don't ping it. You don't have to be spot on. You just gotta, roughly, you aim right here, for instance, if you're this close. You throw your torps here. When the torps make it about right here, about midway, you start pinging the hell out of this thing. And, you get one ping, then, they'll hone in. You get the second ping, they're going to hit it. Almost guaranteed. You do damage control, you ping them again. And if you get the distance right, by the time the damage control happens, your torps are close and you got another ping on them. And they're going to nuke this guy, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's based on the mechanics here, but again, historically, subs have a massive advantage over battleships. Really, the only thing that's had an advantage over subs has been destroyers. This is why, you know, a lot of the Soviet destroyers that they had in history, the Ognavoy, you know, the Udaloy, the Tashkent, the Khabarovsk, a lot of these were kept post World War II, and it wasn't because of, you know, surface battles. It was for the fact that they wanted to make sure that subs couldn't go waltzing in there and start torping them. And it wasn't the destroyers that they were worried about. It was the commerce, the merchant marines. So basically, you know, just like the wolf pack with the Germans, how they were just decimating merchant ships, and you know, resources that were going to Russia, that were going to England from the U.S. You know, and I think it was to Finland, or I think it was in Scandinavia too. But it was to disrupt the supply chain, the logistics, and you know, we had to actually try to develop ways to stop them. Well, but we, you know, here we don't have radar below. We only have hydro, but hydro is on a cooldown. So they do that to try to balance it so that the subs aren't screwed. But the problem with this is you got an overpowered ship. That's the reason why, if you see earlier on my stream, you'll see that with wargaming, people don't like the subs, because once you get players knowing how to use the subs, they can just wreck a lot of the ships out there. They try to make the subs slower. Well, now some of the new subs, they're faster than snot. We're rebalancing this to make it more, you know, more entertaining. People don't like that. You know, they're not listening to their fan base. They're not listening to the problems. They're just doing what they want. So I was gonna play, but I actually got to get some stuff done so I can play tonight. I will make this up to you guys tomorrow afternoon. I will be doing some warships in the afternoon. I'm sorry about this, but I wanted to get this message out. I wanted to actually let you guys know what's going on. Right now, I would say with the current path the business is going for wargaming, I would give the shelf life of this game about maybe 2 to 4 years. But I think the problems people are seeing with these, quote, super unicum players, especially late at night, it's going to get worse. If you want to see how bad it's going to get, start an account on World of Warplanes and play that. And the, quote, real players on there, it doesn't matter when you play, you're going to find them on there at Tier 1, Tier 3, Tier 7. And the big problem that they've had in there that I think killed their fan base was the Tier 8 planes. Tier 7, 1 through 7 were planes. Tier 8 through 10, you got jets. And you got such an evolutionary jump there of planes to jets that you know, it's like having first, second, third gen planes trying to fight against fifth gen planes. You're not, you know, it's going to be a wash. The more advanced planes are always going to nuke them. They have better speed, better armament. The damage potential is a lot higher, and it's the same thing here, you know. And that's the problem with this right now. I'd say the big gimmicks are doing is HE spamming, swapping gimmicks from ship to ship, and you know, now they're going to be coming out with faster subs, and everything's got deep water torps, and you got bots. So right now, my biggest complaint in this is lack of security and bots in the game. The artwork in this is incredible. The base game engine of the game is incredible, and I think that they don't respect their fan base. You know, I think the people working for Wargaming do. And the testament with this is, look at the detail work on the ship. Look at the detail work of the water. Look at the islands. You know, the code. The fact that they've never taken warships down in 7 years and actually done an overhaul on this, and they actually haven't done a massive update in this where you have to reinstall the game to actually get everything back up. And they've got people in here that have actually they installed the game 5 years ago and they haven't had to do any retooling of the game. That's a testament of their coding. So their IT department and their art department, I have nothing but the utmost respect. Their development and the game design of the business aspects and how they do the balancing, I think it sucks. And so, yeah, I will still play Warships, but it's only going to be in the afternoon. If you're in North America, if you're a higher level player, I would say if you want a really fun challenge, play late at night. If you're a new player and you want to actually get a feel for this game, don't play at after midnight. I would say ideally don't play Pacific-wise. Realistically, don't play after 10 p.m. You'll see it incrementally get worse. I mean, you know, some days it won't be bad. If it's the weekends, I would say try to play in the afternoon. Weekdays, you have an advantage where you can get away with it a little bit later. But that's just my opinion. You know, take it with a grain of salt. You know, this is just based on people that I've talked to in Oceania, um, Russia, Europe, and here. You know, both in that are involved with the game, were involved with the game, or people that play the game and what they've seen. So, you know, aside from that, I hope that you guys will actually play the game, have some fun with it. Play it when it's actually worthwhile. If you're going to play it at night, I would say co-op, unless I said you're a powerhouse. I will be doing streams of this. I will be doing streams of Blitz. Aside from that, it's going to be in the afternoon. It's going to be intermittent. I hope you guys will understand that. And I will catch everybody later tonight. I will do a little bit of Warframe. Hopefully, I got a lot of work I got to get done. If I don't do a stream tonight, don't hold it against me. But I will be doing a longer stream tomorrow. I will be doing some Warships. I'm going to try to do multiple streams. I wanted to do them like in shorter increments, like for an hour, hour and a half, and then doing one at night that'll be longer. And I am going to start doing this once I get myself into a set routine, which I'm pretty much getting there. I'm going to be angling with this to try to do one day out of the week where I'm going to be doing long streams. And it'll probably be maybe like Sunday. Well, actually, it'd be Saturday. Saturday would be the best for me because I actually have a radio show I'm doing on Sundays. But aside from that, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I'll catch you guys tonight.